Good afternoon. Going to be having another live stream, and I'm hoping people will join my live stream so that way I can talk with them. Would be very great, very interesting. So if anybody joins, that would be fantastic. To start off my conversation, I'm going to be bringing up the aspects of acquiring subscribers to my channel. I'm attempting to get my channel up to the requirements by YouTube for revenue generation on YouTube, which is 1,000 subscribers and I believe 30 to 40 hours of watch time. So if you could join my channel and watch my videos, that would be fantastic. So I'm going to be continuing with my chat. The topic for today, which is a continuation, is about Donald Trump. And I've been going over things that try to give some sort of clarity of the person and why that person does what they do, and try to understand why they do what they do, which is what I've been doing. So I've been going over his history, and the big thing with his history is that it appears his father was a parent influence on him. His father was very tough, and when you see Donald Trump, he's got that very tough kind of presentation about himself, and his father was a very tough kind of person himself. Aspects of why people follow Donald Trump is something I went over also. And it pretty much come down to, in the previous conversations, that there's a feeling of he stands up for people, that he will help people move forward, he will help people get further along. Now, whether or not that actually happens, that's pretty much a question mark, but a lot of the stuff that I read dealt on the aspect of people following him because they feel very confident in how he can help them out. One thing that didn't come up was this aspect of the very aggressive religious aspect of the United States, and that the Republican Party in general, and Donald Trump as a result, has support of the extremely religious people in the United States. Probably, I was going to say not because, but probably for the same kind of reason that I just mentioned, which is he's helping them out, but helping them out in the perspective of what they look at with respect to what they feel is correct, for lack of a better way of saying that. But again, you know, some religious people feel things should be done a very specific way, and they're getting the impression Donald Trump supports that, or at least promotes that, and runs his government in that sort of light. Whether he does or not, again, that's a question mark, and those are questions I'd actually ask for people, let's say, who are Trump fanatics, who are religious in nature, to actually understand what it is specifically that he's doing that makes him feel comfortable about supporting him. I don't see it myself, just from all the history and all the things I've seen that Donald Trump has done. I actually have a very difficult time understanding why religious people actually believe that he is the right person. But again, the religious faction in the United States, I say group, I don't want to say faction, people are going to think I'm trying to point them out as some sort of cult, but the religious proponents in the United States, they appear to be conservative in nature. The conservative party in the United States is the Republican Party, and I'm not really sure that they follow him explicitly because of who he is, as much as what organization he represents, of which in the United States he's currently representing the Republican Party. with all that said, I'm going to continue my conversation, and I've been using ChatGPT just because, to be honest, it's easier for me to actually get information as opposed to me hunting around, which I used to do. I used to hunt around the internet and look for information, as I just lost internet for like a fraction of a second. Anyways, I'm going to continue that part of my investigation. As I said, I'm going to stick with ChatGPT just like as I said, because I'm comfortable with it, and I think it provides me enough information that I can use as a basis of evaluation, which again I'm going to continue. I technically just asked, ChatGPT, tell me what questions that would be asked about Donald Trump, but it came up with a bunch of them. And one of them that stands out, which is this one I have highlighted, which is, why do Trump supporters remain loyal despite scandals? I did actually do a investigation or a talk about this last time, and this one is more explicitly about questioning why, based on some things that came out about points that are questionable about Donald Trump, and why people still follow him regardless. And I'm going to do that. I'm actually just going to do a search for this and see what it gives me for an answer. So, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Okay. Okay. So I just asked my question that it pointed out, which is just to reiterate, why do Trump supporters remain loyal despite scandals? And it says here, Trump's supporters remain loyal not because scandals don't exist, but because those scandals are psychologically processed in a very different way than critics expect. That's interesting. I'd like to see what it says about that, because I would say if there's a scandal there, that should be something that stands out as a point of concern, regardless of who the person is. So let's see what ChatGPT explains about this. Again, a lot of these are somewhat psychological in nature. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so I can't actually perform this kind of evaluation in a scientific manner. It's just me asking questions and bringing up points that I see, and then try to clarify the question or clarify the points that are being brought up. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking to see if anybody's joining, as I've been asking people on a regular basis to join my chat, and nobody does. So I don't know actually what's going on. Nobody's joining my chat, and it's starting to become extremely frustrating that I can't get people to join my chat. Below is a clear, layered explanation of the mechanisms that sustain loyalty even under repeated controversy. Okay. Loyalty is identity-based, not performance-based. Okay. For many supporters, Trump is not just a politician, a policymaker, a manager. He is a symbol of identity. It kind of like it says, like, it's not so much saying, we don't care about what he's doing as much as who it is. This is Donald Trump. And they kind of like try to say, well, it's Donald Trump, so it's Donald Trump. I would almost say Donald Trump would actually say that himself. Psychologically, supporting Trump becomes part of who they are. Attacking Trump feels like attacking them. And I think that's normal. Again, that's not so much to do with Trump per se, or specifically the type of person who he is. That's somewhat of a standard, psychological activity with human beings, that if you stand up for somebody, you actually take on what's attacking them as something personal. Not that it explicitly is personal, but you take it on as personal. And again, to me, that's normal psychology. So there's nothing really outstanding there. Once identity is involved, evidence is filtered emotionally. Reversal becomes psychologically painful. Abandonment feels like betrayal of self or group. I think that still is a lot of aspects of general psychological understanding. This makes loyalty resilient to scandal. Not really sure about that conclusion. Not really sure about that conclusion. I get this aspect of these things I just stated. It gets along lines of almost a brainwashing kind of, consequence. That you follow somebody because they are the right person from your perspective. They're the ones that are doing things everything correctly from your perspective. You feel that you're a part of that group, which again gets into brainwashing itself, and that it kind of like makes it more difficult for you to see things more explicit or more concretely. He's being attacked like we are, which they said above. Supporters often feel culturally mocked, politically ignored, morally judged by elites, economically sidelined. I've seen these things on other parts of the conversation, and it goes along lines of what I see is specifically in the United States, to some extent, even though where I'm at, which is Canada, it's very similar kind of aspects of there are groups of people who feel they're on the outside and they're not the in group, or they're not the in crowd. And because of it, they feel that there is ridicule because of it. And I think that's what they're trying to say here. He goes, these people feel like, we're being left out. I think a lot of it's got to do with maybe the perception of the political groups in the United States, and that the liberal groups in the United States, which would be the Democrats mostly, have what I see as a persona of being what they called here of elitist and that type of thing. And I think it comes down, the aspect is usually the people in the Democratic group are the people who speak very eloquently, but because they speak in a very eloquent way, it gives a presentation of, let's say, I'm above you. Not the fact that that's what they're trying to say, but I think a lot of people say, look at this guy using all these big fancy words. We'll see me. He can't talk to me at my own. I can see people saying that and doing that, and a reason why they may not like them, and because the Democratic group in the United States have a lot of people who speak very well, vocabulary wise, they speak very good English as the language they speak in the United States, that it's difficult for some people to handle that as a means of communicating with them. Again, it gives an aspect of it seems like you're speaking over me instead of speaking to me. And I can see why those could be reasons why someone says, I don't like that person, because they're not speaking to me. It's like they're speaking down to me, and they're belittling me, and they're making me feel as though I'm not part of the group. When Trump is criticized, they perceive they're doing to him what they do to us. Yes. Results. Trump scandals are reframed as persecution. I would say that's probably true. Defending Trump becomes self-defense. Yes. Criticism strengthens emotional bonding. Okay. This is called vicarious victimization. I guess that what they just said is what that means, so you understand what it means too. If you told me what does vicarious victimization means, I wouldn't know, except for the fact that I just read that apparently it's scandals are referred to as persecution. Defending Trump becomes self-defense. So defending somebody becomes self-defense. Criticism strengthens emotional bonding. Okay, so vicarious victimization. Distrust of institutions neutralize scandals. Many supporters already distrust mainstream media. That's interesting, actually, because I'm a bit older. I remember the old days where mainstream media was actually very considered very positive in nature, as opposed to the word I'm trying to think of, which I can't remember. But in the older days, the news groups were the place everybody went to get information. The internet didn't exist. All the information you got was from the news media. and there was a lot of trust in the news media per se. Now, over the past 20, 30 years, you can see that's changed quite a bit, because news has been changed from providing information to providing content that obviously for the companies that own these news organizations, revenue generation. So I could see why nowadays media itself is distrusted just because of the way people see it going about and stuff. Political institutions, well, I don't know about that. Courts in the United States, yes. Experts, that's a big thing with the aspect is these people think that they know what they're talking about, but they're experts. They talk about the stuff that they know about, so you can't criticize them for talking about the things they're expertise in. And I don't think it's so much that they criticize or dislike, or let's say have mistrust of experts per se, as aspects of the information that's provided by the experts are difficult to accept. And it comes down to the consequence or the conclusion from the people who don't like experts as they're not experts. There's something else. Bureaucracies. So when scandals emerge, the source matters more than the claim. Yeah, I would think that would be true, but the thing is, we don't see that happening a lot, specifically with Trump. Psychological filter. If they are saying it, it's probably exaggerated, fake, or malicious. You're seeing that a lot nowadays, and it's coming down with respect to the capabilities we have nowadays. Like AI has become extremely influential with respect to what people believe has been generated, because anybody can say that was AI generated, and because of the level of the technology, they can actually do quite a bit. It's been very powerful over the past 10 years as this technology has taken off. So I can understand now, with respect to the state of society, the capability we have nowadays, it becomes easy to say this because people can see it. This creates scandal immunity. New allegations blend into background noise. Credibility erosion of institutions protects Trump's. Yeah, okay. Moral reframing ends over means. Supporters often prioritize outcomes, strength, resistance to enemies, boundary enforcement over decorum, procedural ethics, personal virtue. So scandals are processed as he's flawed, but he fights. Okay. Or they're worse. Yes. This moral trade-off raising not moral blindness. I actually think there's actually is a lot, using the term moral probably is not a term I would use. The aspect of correctness and what you perceive as being correct can somewhat be, from my perspective, overlooked, ignored, and in the end, not really seen. And this aspect of the previous topic was saying that's a lie. I've seen a lot of people who are promoting Donald Trump stating the aspect of that can't be true. It has to be AI. I'm thinking, yeah, but this happened before AI. So where do you get the aspects of, and again, it comes to aspect, we don't care where you're saying it's coming from. We're telling you that it's a lie because it can't be true. And again, to me, that gets into almost that cultish mentality, that brainwashing mentality that, to be honest with you, I find that Donald Trump has been able to do that with respect to the people who follow him. I think he's been able to brainwash people. And that could be for a lot of different conclusions or reasons, but I do see that that appears to be what's happening. Of course, people are going to say, yeah, but, people on the left, that's happening to them too. I'm thinking, it comes down the aspect of saying, you can look at some sort of presentation, some sort of comment, then you go through the process of evaluation to make a determination whether or not there's question marks behind it. And regardless of what political group you're following, you should always step away and try to understand 100% what's being done, what's being said, what has happened. Because a lot of times, Trump and his criticism has to do with what has happened. Trump's refusal to apologize or retreat is interpreted by supporters as strength, authenticity, courage. Yeah, I've heard that too, but again, where critics see dishonesty and arrogance, I can see exactly that. Yeah, because people say, yeah, you're going after him, but he's strong, he stands up for himself, and people say, the guy's a liar. And you can see that's two sides of the combat, the fight, whatever way you want to say that. And the way I look at it is, just step away and listen to what's being said. Evaluate and determine what is actually being said explicitly. So that way you can sit there and say, this is what I'm seeing. Not this is not what I'm being told, but this is what I understand. I think that would be a benefit to everybody in general, not regardless of what political group they follow, but the aspect this thing goes, I'm going to step back and I'm going to hear and listen to what they say. Now again, I'm a liberal person, but there are a lot of times with respect to the groups that I follow, or let's say the political groups in my particular area of the world, who are liberal in quotation marks, where I've questioned left and right, and it says, there's questions there that I cannot accept 100%. And I've disagreed with them, and I've actually changed my political points of view because of things like that. It's not to do with that, because I'm a liberal. Because, as I tell people, I'm more of a social liberalist. I believe in social programs above anything else, because I look at things as, like, society in general should be conformed to helping out those who need help. And I don't mean helping out anybody who wants to have help. And again, it's because if somebody needs help, we should, as a society, try to help them out. When you see somebody living on the street, as a society, you sit there and put something in place where it goes, how can we help them better their lives? That's the way I feel. Now, some people may not feel that way. Some people may feel, look, they put themselves in that situation. It's their responsibility to get themselves out of that situation. I sit there and say, okay, that's great, While I'm not a religious person at all, I look at the aspects of some of the things that religious people always say, which is we follow, let's say, in the Christian mentality, the teachings of Jesus Christ. And the teachings of Jesus Christ is help those who need help. I'm saying, if you're a Christian person, you're a religious person, and you believe that everybody has the responsibility to help themselves, then how do you correlate to what the teachings of Jesus Christ was supposed to be about? Somewhat getting off topic here, but I apologize. Supporters see refusal to submit, resilience under fire. Admitting wrongdoing would lower his value in their eyes. I would agree with that, and it comes down to the aspect of, when I see Donald Trump do things, he never admits fault. He never admits wrongdoing with this terminology, and I think it's got to do specifically because of that, because he doesn't want to look bad. Not the fact that he doesn't want to look, he doesn't want to look bad, because if he looks bad, then the potential of losing, let's say, in the political realm, supporters may occur, which he doesn't want to have happen. He wants to maintain and keep his supporters, because that's how he keeps himself moving forward. Conflict signals authenticity. Trump violates norms openly. To supporters, this signals he's not fake, he's not scripted, he's not one of them. Scandals paradoxically confirm he doesn't play by their rules. Again, that all depends on what scandal you're talking about. This makes him feel more real, not less. And again, that's a matter, from my perspective, that's a matter of perspective. Because a lot of people sort of say, he violates norms openly, kind of say, goes, well, he's going against what would be perceived as, in the general perspective, what is correct. But then again, it comes down to, do you feel that technically, conceptually is correct? And the fact that if he doesn't go with it, he's going against, something that from maybe your perspective is not correct anyways. So I can see how these things can go, but you can see why people would sit there and question why he's doing these things and understanding the consequences of him doing these things, and probably not understanding 100% why people accept the fact that he's doing things that would be scandalous in nature. Nobody's joined me at all. I'm going to have to try and figure out a different way to try to coax people to come and join my chat, because it's been just me talking. I don't want to talk. I want to talk to other people. I want to hear other people say and give their impressions and stuff. And nobody is joining me at all. Loyalty is reinforced by polarization. The more intense opposition becomes, the more supporters close rank, the more loyalty hardens, the harder it becomes to exit. Not really clear 100% on that. Leaving Trump's camp risks social ostracism, identity loss, admitting error under hostility. Okay. To me, that gets into still the brainwashing kind of mentality of this goes, like, look what's going to happen to you if you leave, which is going to give that people that psychological impact of feeling a consequence of leaving. May not be there, but again, the whole aspect is making people feel that there will be a consequence. Psychologically, it's easier to double down than defect. Okay. Trump actively reframes scandals. Trump doesn't ignore scandal. He attacks accusers, discredits institutions, reframes narratives, personalizes conflict. Yes. This gives supporters a ready-made interpretation, reducing cognitive strain. People prefer simple narrative under stress. Okay, that's just general comments or statements. Scandals don't violate supporters' core expectations. Critically, Trump behaves exactly how supporters expect him to behave. Okay, so scandals don't feel like betrayal, they feel like confirmation. Contrast this with politicians who campaign as moral or technocratic. Scandals destroy them because they violate expectations. To me, some of these things with respect to how ChatGPT is bringing them about is they're looking at, say, general scandals as opposed to very questionable scandals. The big thing that comes up to me, which I've seen on other YouTube channels and people bring it up all the time, like Pushing the Limits, which is a channel I watch there, and a lot of times that comes up with the host always bringing up the fact of somebody who is a intense proponent of Donald Trump and who do point out the aspect of Donald Trump doesn't do anything wrong. The host always comes up to, how do you feel when Donald Trump says it's okay to go into a changing room where he can see women in a very questionable state, basically undressed, because he feels it's his right to do so. And he does it because it's something that he obviously wants to do, and he can get away with it. And there have been people in the beauty pageants, which he was running for a while, where he said, I did that. I have the right to do that. I'm checking out the candidates. And I would say I find that very scandalous as one way of looking at that, even though there's a lot of other words. As for me, that's, I say pedophilia, because some of these pageants are with, young girls, teenagers. And I say that sounds like a pedophile doing something like that. And I'm thinking to myself, that kind of scandal, how does giving a different light on that make it better if it's known that he did do it? And then, again, I want the proponents of Donald Trump to explain to me why they feel that's okay. One core insight: Trump supporters are loyal because Trump fulfills deep psychological needs that scandals do not threaten. The identity, protection, dignity, restoration, and perceived strength. Okay, that's the same thing over again as the above stuff. He's a strong guy, so he gets away with it. Why this loyalty is hard to break. To break loyalty, one of these would have to happen. Trump humiliates supporters directly, which he actually does quite a bit. He is perceived as weak or submissive, maybe, and he doesn't. I don't think people perceive him that way. He abandons the identity narrative. I actually think he does that quite a lot, just that he hides it a lot. A trusted in-group source discredits him. I would think in the aspect of the political realm, he has the advocate of the Republican group in the United States, and that being the group that, let's say, a lot of these people are looking for as being a group that they follow in the realms of politics, that they see that whatever's happening there is correct, and Donald Trump is in the front of that, and so he can't be doing wrong. And yes, while there's been some sort of, ruffling in that particular political group currently, I don't think it's extensive enough for people to really say there's something going on here. Final takeaway: Trump's durability is not about ignorance or blind faith. It's about psychological alignment. He remains loyal to how his supporters feel under stress, and they remain loyal to him. And that's it. Okay, so just asking if there's other questions you want to ask. And so we'll leave it there. And this somewhat a replication or continuation of previous videos I've done, where trying to understand why people follow him. This one more specifically about exactly how do scandals basically bounce off of him. That's what it looks like. It looks like nothing sticks to him. It looks like people will appreciate him regardless of what he's done. Now, a lot of it's got to do with the aspect of, there's I say brainwash because it seems almost that way, where people say, he does nothing wrong. All these accusations are lies. They're not even true. That presentation was something that was AI generated, and Trump follows along with that quite extensively. Like the one thing that stands in my mind as I was saying that is the Ontario government in Canada had done some I guess advertisements. I don't know if they were actually advertisements, but they had done posting on the networks about Ronald Reagan during his term and how he felt about tariffs. Now, the aspect of what he felt and what he didn't feel, to me, that's irrelevant. It's the aspect of actually how Donald Trump reacted to it. And he said the same thing that a lot of people are saying is, that's not real, that was AI generated. I'm going, eh? Now I say, huh? Because me, now like I said, I'm Canadian, but as you know, in Canada, we get a lot of American content. In fact, during that time, the majority of the content we watched was American TV channels. So we saw everything the Americans saw. I remember seeing those commercials. I remember it was actually something that was bothering me, because I was thinking to myself at that time, they're bringing in free trade, because that was roughly around the time when free trade was being initially promoted heavily between Canada and the United States, that I felt that it was going to be a huge impact on Canada and the Canadian, economy, for lack of a better way of saying that, but basically how things are moving. I felt that was going to be very detrimental to Canada, and some extent it was. There were some industries in Canada that were completely wiped out because of the free trade. Not easy to say it, but maybe there's some other things were brought up about it. That could be possibly very true. I can't say I'm 100% up to speed on everything. Just I do know that there were some programs that were completely dismantled because of the free trade. So I actually didn't agree with it when it came out. But I do remember seeing those advertisements. They're technically not advertisements, they're political commenting, for lack of a better way of saying that, about how the president at that time, which was Ronald Reagan, explained his points of view on the topic. And he said specifically that, yeah, he didn't think tariffs were a good thing. And in general, if you're an economist, I'm not an economist, but I had to take a lot of economics in university, so I actually had to learn a little bit about it, and thinking, yeah, the aspect is the state of the world nowadays is at a point where there's a lot of interaction between, the different countries, and there has to be some level of comfort between trading activities between countries. And the fact that tariff on products from a country is probably going to have an impact, especially if those products are a necessity. They go say, look, if we're putting tariffs on things we don't really have any 100% concrete use for, it doesn't really make any difference anyways. That's people are buying it because they want to buy it, not so much because they absolutely need it. The thing is, Donald Trump is putting a lot of tariffs in place with respect to things that the United States needs or has high levels of desire for. And he said to say, well, why would you do that? There's a lot of questions there, and I can continue this conversation just talking about that, but I'm not going to. Nobody joined my conversation again. I'm trying to get people to join my conversation. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've been trying to advertise as much as possible, but the people who say they're going to join never join, and I'm questioning why they don't. So I'm going to have to try and figure out maybe a more aggressive strategy to try to coax people to join my chats and see if I can do that, because again, I want my channel to be a interactive channel. I want to talk to people about the things that they believe and understand. I don't want to argue with them. Like there are a lot of channels I see on, in fact, some of the more popular channels, you can see that combative nature of the people who are hosting these channels with respect to people they're communicating with in their interaction. I don't want to do that. I just want to hear people's explanations of why they do things, why they follow things, why they believe in things. I want to have an understanding. Because for me, understanding is the optimal thing to actually do. If I can understand the way you look and the way you see things, then I can understand probably aspects of communication with you that may be more productive. I'm going to leave things there. I want to thank you for watching my video. If you watch my videos, again, I want people to join my channel. So if you can join my channel, that'd be great. It would bring up my my subscription list to the point where it will be validated by YouTube and I can continue going along with what I'm doing. Anyways, I'll leave it there. And again, I will thank you very much. And I'm going to stop my streaming. Get my mouse active here, and I'm going to stop.